All right, there we go. We're back in. What's up, Faulkner? Coming on. That's right, a Faulkner. By the way, fantastic first name. I'm glad your last name isn't Faulkner because that would be weird because it'd be Faulkner Faulkner.
You
Uh,
can't have that.
no, instead it's Faulkner Hunt though. So it's like you come from a family of hunters, and they decided to name you after a writer. So that's fantastic.
It is. I'd love to be able to take credit for it, but my mother and father were largely. My father was to blame for it, or to give the credit, whichever way you see fit.
Well, you're from Texas, as they say, and obviously you grew up around books. According to your bio, it's stated that your father had a massive library from top to bottom filled with books. Now, obviously, there are more than one book. It wasn't just a kaleidoscope with a single book.
Yes, that would be cool. Also, but, yeah.
Were you a prolific reader when you were like growing up, or were you just like, hey, there's a lot of books in this house. I think I'm going to go outside.
Well, it depends on the age. I mean, I always kid people that I was raised by a television set more than I was, but always to my father's consternation. I mean, I can still hear his car coming up the driveway, in the summer when we should have been either, reading or, I don't know, doing push-ups or running outside, doing anything. And he'd come in and we'd just turn the TV off, and he'd come in and he'd just put his hand on top of the TV set and he'd be like, this thing is white hot. It's been on all day, I can tell.
Back in the day when you needed the ratchet to change the channels.
Yeah, but I mean, I would say that we did read a lot, and everybody, when I did read one, when I was reading, it always got into me in a way that was much more intimate than television. It was just a much more impactful way to take art in, but I was a kid in the 80s and 70s and even, and so that's what we did. I mean, we were outside most of the time, but when TV was available, we got all over it. I mean, it was Saturday morning cartoons, there was nothing on, until the evening. So it wasn't like there were a lot of screens in our lives, but boy, when we had a crack at it, it was fun.
Now, do you think because there's streaming and like really there isn't, I wouldn't say television nowadays, it's just streaming,
Yeah.
It's everywhere. Do you think writers have a harder time getting to their books because there's just so much content to absorb out there?
Well, I do. I think everyone does. I mean, I think for a while there, the younger generation was kind of getting an earful about like, oh, you guys just, you live on your, and truth be told, I think it's everybody. I think it's epidemic. And I don't even like joking about it because I think it does have really, truly serious implications for the social fabric of whatever community you happen to be a part of.
Yeah. And that, that's the thing, some writers, they have a good community where they can kind of like, hey, did you write today? Did you work on your book today? You want to get together and talk story? And I grew up, if you know my story, but everyone that watches the channel knows I grew up as a screenwriter, television, film, and then I slipped over into the book world. But it wasn't until I found my community that I became so aware of that industry, in a sense where, like, if you're a writer and you're writing by yourself, the only thing you learn is what you learn. But when you're working and talking and hanging out with all these other people, especially in your industry, it opens your eyes. And I think that's important, especially one of the reasons I started the show, and with that said, though, was writing something you learned on your own, or do you feel you became something more of a writer, like a writer once you started dealing with other writers?
Well, kind of like you, I sort of started off, I did in fact start writing screenplays first. That was really my first entry into formalized writing. That's for a lot of reasons. I was in the film industry for a while. I worked at Miramax Films, back when it was truly, kind of an extraordinary startup. Obviously, we all know what happened with, the leadership of the. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. No. And, never saw any of that sort of illegality, but definitely can say that both, certainly Harvey Weinstein and both of them were about the worst people I've ever been around, even not knowing what he was up to. You know, just
They were
full
tough
stop.
guys.
They were bad news.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So there's that. But so I kind of had that background in my professional career, and then oddly enough, my college roommate and my high school friend was Owen Wilson. He's blurbed the book. I don't know if you saw it, but he and I lived together in college. He you know, always wanted to get into screenwriting. Wes Anderson was part of that friend group, just randomly. They were, I think they met doing something like maybe they took a Shakespeare class or a creative writing class. I forget. This is all in Austin. And so, you know, Owen and I, you know, he was kind of one of the people that did sort of half the laughing, you know, all the time. And so we had a relationship, and he would always be very encouraging. It's like, we should write something, or you should write something, like, let's do that. And so he was very generous. And, you know, I wrote some things that he always gave me good feedback on, and really tried to be encouraging. You know, it's a hard industry, as you know, not a whole lot gets made. But, you know, I had some fun with it, got into some really interesting meetings, met some interesting people. But I started to realize that, as crazy as it sounds, it's actually easier, I think, to go the path of novel writing in terms of like getting something, you know, put out into the world. Getting something out there, because even though it's extremely hard as well, it's not as hard as what I realized was, you know, truly a near impossibility of the other route. So my style, I guess, would really largely be kind of just an extended screenplay. I mean, everything's written in the third person. I never once put, you know, the camera inside somebody's head. It's all done with just visuals, how they're moving, the dialogue. And so,
yeah, you do write cinematically. That is something that does stand out. Like the way you explain the storms, the way you know, you move. I call it framing, you know, like when I explain it on the channel, because I come from the screenwriting background.
Yeah.
Like as you're writing, you're framing, you're establishing the master shot, you're going in for a mid, you're doing an insert for something. And if you write with that sort of like perspective through the characters, you do get what you got, which is also known as rotating, cinematic third person limited rotating, which
that's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, but you do have that very nice style there. Right? It is something.
Yeah, no, thank you. You know, and like you say, I mean, I think I really went to school on this book. You know, you learn obviously by doing. There are other ways to do it, but for me, I really learned by doing. You know, how much to give the reader, how little. You know, just trying to build a structure, a story properly. I never like reading a book and I'm all of a sudden thinking, where am I? Why am I doing? What are we doing here? Like, what is all this? You know, I wanted that very quick pace, sort of linear style that movies give you. Then they sort of pick you up, a good one, and then never put you down until the end. So I didn't want to waste any time. So the pacing, I think, was very much movie style. So yeah, I almost felt like, you know, people talk about, oh, everybody's attention span is so much shorter now, and you have to kind of meet people where they are. I mean, I think this art form has to do that. And so to give them something that was quick, that didn't meander. I wanted to write a page turner, full stop.
Yeah. I mean, my only pushback with that, and I do it respectfully, of course, but where it's like that short attention span, it's like sometimes it's not really about how much you put on the page, because again, a quote unquote slow pace book can still have a fast read.
No question.
You know, depending on if you're using logical narrative movement, or, you know, if you're creating different switches and POVs, if it, maybe whatever the case is. But I do agree with you in a sense where I don't know if you're seeing it on the internet, but there's this new trend going on where people hold up books and they're like, look at all these words. Like, why? Look, there's too many words on these pages.
Yeah.
Like they just want just dialogue. And, you know, to us screenwriters, please, thank you. But like, but that's not what a novel is. A novel isn't dialogue. A novel is creating a visual experience through immersive detail that we can't really experience on cinema, just like you can't, you know, like there are two different mediums for a reason, you know, you're two different emotional experiences. So it is interesting though, especially with the TikTok era, and like
Sure.
what's next.
Right. Yeah. You got to grab them, you got to hold them, and you got to get, you got to do it without losing them. And it's not easily done. I do feel like part of my enthusiasm for novels and just writing, and because it is, as you say, it's just a different art form.
Yeah.
It's not as if it's not a one or the other. It's not like, oh, movies are better than, it's not that. It's just a different way to take on board art. And it hits you in a very different way. And I think it's more important now than ever, just because I think the art form has more, it just brings, it's more important, feels like to me.
And with a book, there's an intimacy there where we are placing our own emotional truths in our experience of reading the book. Whereas if we're watching a movie or a show, we're actually having empathy for the emotional truth that actors are presenting to the material. And, not that that's a bad thing, but again, it is a different, that's why and I'm sure it's the same with everybody. When you're reading, the voices you hear in your head for the characters and the way you feel for these characters is different than the next person that reads the book. Even though us as writers have to have the truth there, that the emotion has to be on the page, but the way we experience it is going to change it. So it's like a different ride for every person who picks up the book.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you said that, because I struggled with that a lot, because sometimes I think I would overwrite and overcook a scene, trying to sort of fill in every single gap, where I then realized later, and kind of, as I was editing the book, made sure to create a lot of space in there for the reader to come in. And because when you do create that space, they then personalize it. Their mind automatically fills in those spaces, and then it becomes their book, and becomes their experience, and they really personalize it in a way that they wouldn't have otherwise. So that took me a minute to trust my reader, give them the room to come in and be involved, and that took a little while. And that's one of the many things that I say when you go to school on a book, you really do learn as you go.
Yeah, one of the things I talk about on the channel often is a thing called vague but informative, where you're giving just enough information for context to make sense. Like, oh, I know what's going on, but not enough where they have all the answers, where they're questioning it, they're wondering, they want to turn the page to find out what's next. And a lot of newer writers, what they fall into is what you're saying, the over explaining. I need to tell them what they are feeling. I need to tell the reader what is happening. And sometimes it's stronger to be like, well, let the reader connect to what they're feeling. Let the reader connect to what is going on, And we talk about craft a lot and often on the show. And one of the things that I feel makes a writer is asking questions as we're writing, trying to make choices to what we pick. And, making choices, what part of the writing process really unlocked the book for you? Was it during plotting, if you plot? Was it writing the characters in your prose? Was it the environment? Because I know the environment is very important to this novel.
Yeah.
Specifically, what was it that you feel really unlocked the book to you?
Yeah, I definitely plot, but not too much. More like stepping stones that have some space, big space in between. Because I think if you plot too tightly, then you don't allow the characters to sort of take over. And character, it's cliche, but character is story. That's what it's all about. What are the characters going to do? They are the story. And so you can't, constrain them too much. But at the same time, I'm definitely not just sort of a let it rip by the seat of your pants either, because then you just get lost. And I think, to me, it's kind of like climbing a mountain. You like, oh, okay, I think I can summit, that way. And then you get about a third of the way up and you're like, I cannot summit from here. Or something comes to you and you're like, okay, let's rappel back down about a third of the way. And then kind of this route looks like a better route. So you have to have that space in there to, for me anyway, but what brought the story to life was definitely when I started to know the characters, because you get to know them, as you know, you get to know them as you go. And that's exciting. And that's a relationship that's real. And so maybe you would make a decision about what they're going to go and do, how they might react to something, what would be important to them early on. And then you realize, actually, I know them a little better now, and they wouldn't react that way. So that's what unlocked it. I also used, for me, just techniques to get into the feel of the story. I use music, just to kind of feel what would this section of the book sound like?
Now, did you go live in a homeless, an empty building to like Tito and Rory, where you're like, let me be homeless? Did you do that and be like, what does this feel like? Or you're like, no, I need hot chocolate. I got to go home.
I could no, some of that was just pure, imagination. I mean, I was probably 2/3 of the way through the story before I realized that Tito and Rory were probably me and my brother. That's what I was writing about. Nice. Or I also have 2 boys, of my own. And so kind of writing about them. So just, there was so much material there, that I could recall back to what it was like to be that age, to how everything is sort of heightened, magical, mystical, strange, confusing, exciting, illogical. So I enjoyed that. But I didn't want it to just be like about the boys. So, obviously Ennis, it's hard to say who the main character is here. I mean, it's sort of an ensemble. Ennis has obviously his role. He is, very central, but sometimes I think, Tito is the heart of the story. Tito and Rory's relationship is central. So it was certainly an ensemble that way.
Now, you were saying something when you outline, you leave a little bit of space, and you also said I want to actually touch on where you said characters of story. And what's interesting is on the channel itself, and when I teach writing and stuff like that, I talk about how a narrative is made up of both plot and story. Plot is what needs to happen no matter what, and story is how the plot unfolds through the emotional choices and experiences of the character. So it's interesting to hear another author talk about how story is the character. It is their choices. So, with that said, you mentioned that you try to write plot, or your outline where you leave the room is. So would you say that is kind of how you approach it, where you go, what needs to happen? And then when you get to the page to write it, you're like, how does it unfold?
Yeah, that's about right. I mean, so like, let's say that I start a new chapter or a new section. I pretty much know what heavy lifting needs to happen, what movements need to be made in that chapter. But it's really kind of like we have to get from A to B, and I kind of know what B is, and I definitely know what A is. But what happens in between is sort of more free form, because that's where the organic elements come in. That's where they do things that would surprise you, that are authentically funny, or that are authentically poignant, or that, are surprising, that then shift the story. I'm not going from sort of north by northwest, all of a sudden shifting to south by southeast, but I'm course correcting, as I go, depending on what comes up.
Now, when you say course, sorry.
No, I'm just I know I'm heading in a direction.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
You said course correction, and I love that. And, because I believe in serving the narrative. Like, whatever we believe we want it to be, at some point, we're going to have to serve the narrative based on our characters coming to life on the page, and not necessarily talking to us in our head, but they become living, breathing, dimensional characters, because they have positions, and they have, beliefs and motivations, right? Yeah. When you say course correct, though, are you talking about checking your characters, or are you saying I'm course correcting because the characters are evolving?
The latter. I'm course correcting myself, really. I'm letting them do what they're going to do, and then I'm course correcting the story in front of me based upon that. So I very much I'm taking their cue on those things, and I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, really, like, they're just fake, they're just made up characters. But, they are, but they're also not. This is art, and art is obviously, a reflection of the human condition. And so, you really have to listen to them like a code cracker. You really got your ear to it. And then when you do, then that's where the magic for me would come from. Not like some preconceived notion that I had of how this is all going to go.
Yeah. And it is funny though when people are like, they're just fake. But it's like if you're really writing something, even if you're doing a screenplay, the character can't just be words. It can't just be actions. It has to come from a core truth,
Yeah.
which is ultimately their positions. You know, what do they believe? How do you challenge those positions? How does it create behavior for them? You know, there's a difference between me liking wild cherry Pepsi and somebody liking Coke, you know, and that small little detail
Yeah.
dictates character behavior. Oh, you only have Coke products here? I'm not going to have a drink. Just give me a water and I'll just order the hamburger, right? But if a character likes Coke, they'd be like, oh, great, just give me a Coke. And but that changes the scene. And people don't always realize that it's the little things that make the big effects to the page.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I don't, obviously you're, you know, well versed in story craft. I don't know if you've ever read it. I'm sure you have, because I think everybody has, but I'm sort of the book Story by Robert McKee. But it's just a work of genius how well he explains and understands, you know, what's going on, you know, how to do what he does, because I think a lot of people think it's just sort of instinctive and natural, and it is, but it's nice to know sort of what's happening, what that instinct is, and why that instinct kind of overwhelms you. And but he talks about, you know, that in a screenplay, because it's so much shorter, that every sentence needs to have a value change, and not like good or bad, but just this and that. Like it was like this, and now it's like this, and then it was like this, and now, and that's all moving up the path. And it's just fascinating to. I actually read it after I wrote this book, and I thought, man, damn it,
why didn't I get this purple book?
Yeah. So it's I'm just hearing a lot of his kind of understanding and the way you talk about this process.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, I started in the film, so like I study narrative. I even tell authors, I go, it's okay to watch a movie and then relate it to plot and try to figure out when the plot is changing or when certain beats are happening, because you could see it in real time. You don't have to read 3,000 words in a chapter and be like, well, what happened here? Like, you know, you're seeing it and you're able to see the scenes and breathe. But one of the things that I love that you mentioned is ultimately that every line has to earn its weight, right? Because in screenplays, every line is money. So I say word budget instead of cost budget. And you go, look, I want to describe this thing, but is it worth the word budget that I want 80 to 90,000 words, whatever the case is? So the way to get around that is every sentence does one or more of these three things. It either pushes the plot forward, builds on character development, or enhances the world building, right? And those three things is exactly what you're talking about, where it's like it is doing something, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree. And you would think, like, I'm sure people think, like, what, books are long, they're huge, there's a lot of words in there. Like, you're telling me that strangely enough, even if you have 100,000 word book, every single sentence, and certainly every couple of sentences, is going to have to do that, or you will lose the energy of the book, the momentum. You definitely will. I mean, I think my book ended up being about 90,000. This book ended up being about 90,000 words. But I was telling somebody, like, after all the editing and all the rewrites and all of the changes, I probably wrote 1 million words to get 90,000. Yeah.
For sure. Because even if you take away 3,000 words from whatever and replace it with 3,000 words, you wrote 6,000 words to get
right. That's right. That's why people who are like friends of mine, or like people that are very complimentary about the book, and I was like, you read it just the one time, huh? Like, you have any idea how hard that was? Just one time? What did that take you? A couple days? Like,
right? I had to read it so many times just to get out of there. The process is a process for sure. And but I do love talking craft. I do love seeing how books unfold. There's a series I do called what is it called? The Prose on Prose. So what I do is I I'll take like the first page of like a book, and then I'll analyze it. And those are some of the things I point out. I go, look, you may not like this book. You may like this book. That's not what the thing is about. It's about are they following the rules? Are they making choices? Are they doing? And you could see every line is either moving the plot forward, building the world, or it's doing more than one thing.
Yeah.
Especially if it uses, whatever the case is. But, I also point out the argument. Like, for example, on some of your pages, you use the word was, right? But what do writers always hear? Don't use the word was. And it's like, no, you can break the rule purposefully.
Mm-hmm.
You use ly words. Again, it is one of those, thou shall not pass, and it's like, no, purposefully. Like, when you write, they're just rules as guidelines, and so I like doing that series because it shows that even the quote unquote greats break the rules purposefully, and everything is working on the page and moving it along, just like you were saying.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I always tell people, I tell people, even if it feels like that section was a miss, or like I used something, I broke a rule. Like, I thought about that rule about 6 times, and like went over it and over and over. And finally I was like, you know what, it just sounds better, whether it's, in those cases, sometimes it's just, is it more, what does the rhythm feel like? The cadence, is it lyrical? Is it not? Like, just, just how does that come across? And some of that is just feel. It's just, you're trusting your ear. Because those rules that I've bowed down to are just a means to an end, and sometimes you can get to that end breaking them. And the rules are definitely a guide, though. But if you break them intentionally, that's okay.
Yeah, like sometimes you don't need the Oxford comma. Like you don't need comma end. You could just for the rhythm. Or one of my favorites especially when working with like newer writers, they get worried about grammar. Like, not that they're grammar quote on Nazis. They're just like, well, it has to be perfect. And they get scared of fragmented sentences. And you're like, no, you're allowed to use fragmented sentences. It's creative writing. It's not, you're not writing a thesis.
No.
Or a report, Like,
absolutely right. I mean, and also because people don't speak that, especially when you're talking about dialogue. People don't speak that way at all. They speak in chunks. They swallow their words. They stop in the middle. They start at the wrong place. They're, absolutely. Dialogue is, boy, that is just the toughest to get right, because you have to inhabit a character so completely. And, I mean, I'm sure people would have thought I was crazy if they were in my office, my study, trying to watch the process made. Like, I would just say it over and over and just have to like close my ears and just like, okay, just listen as hard as I possibly could to try to get it right.
Yeah, because one of the rules, the way they say, if you can read the dialogue without tags and you could decipher who's speaking, because that's what they tell you to do in screenwriting.
Yeah,
you're learning the quote unquote voice of a character. Now, for anyone who's listening, just to be clear, voice isn't necessarily like, the words they choose. It's actually the movement behind the words. It's a subtext that becomes the voice of a character. It's the why behind everything.
This was the hardest, Thomas. This was my cross to bear, because the whole story probably lasted maybe a week and a half total.
Yeah.
Most of these people only met each other really briefly, and not very long. And they're also, some of them are extremely taciturn people. They're also guys for that central foursome. So they're not going to tell you what they're actually feeling ever. Not ever. And
damn, guys.
Right. I'm sad. Like, nobody, this is never gonna happen. So like when you put yourself in that position and you're third person, non-omniscient, you just, every single emotion has to be conveyed through like how they're moving, a pause, a little bit of the subtext of the dialogue. Like, he was just a bear. And so to convey anything, and yet that was the corner that I, put myself in, and I had to fight my way out.
But I think that's important, though, as a writer. Listen, this is the thing. Like, some authors, they get comfortable in a thing. They go, I only write in first person, or I only write whatever. And I think to find the strength in what you're even talking about, where it's like you're giving yourself these restrictions, I think they are not restrictions. I think they are freeing you to focus on the way it unfolds, you know, where you go, look, I'm not restricted, but I get to play in this world, and how do I use it, and how do I break it? How do I create something that's natural? You know, for example,
that's right.
Yeah, because you were saying, you know, because it's third person limited, you're not necessarily going inside their heads. And so now you get to play with that physicality. You get to play with the hesitation of their hand going for, you know, the door handle, or the way they stop themselves mid thought, mid word. You know, those are things, those hesitations, those moments are gifts that you might not necessarily get in first person.
No question about it. I mean, I've never thought about it like that, but you're right. I mean, the parameters that we put around ourselves, yes, they are gifts, because you don't want to be unconstrained. And then it's just, because then it can just be sort of a mess. It's kind of the way people talk about poetry. The reason that poetry can be so impactful and so powerful is because you do have to work in really tight boxes and really tight constraints and rules and meter and what have you. It's like William Faulkner talked about himself as I'm a failed poet. So he saw that as he couldn't work in that space, but he could work, you know, in a slightly loosened environment, obviously quite well. But yeah, I agree.
A splice.
yeah, right. I don't think I would switch either. I think I enjoyed the difficulty that put in front of me too much. Because it feels more like real life. Again, people don't just tell you all the time, especially people you don't know very well, how they're feeling. So much is subtext.
But you're also
even beneath like what they know about themselves. Like it's not just what they're going to give you, but this like what they even know.
Absolutely. But even if you're in first person, you can't really know what other people are thinking. But what I like, not that I write in first person often, but what I like about first person is it's perceived. They're not even seeing the truth. They're seeing what they perceive in others. And one of the things I talk about, you know, with clients and stuff like that is when you're writing, even in third person, the description is a choice through the character's perspective. You know, I'm not describing this as an author. The character chose to notice the sound of the boat. The character noticed the mold in the corner. The character noticed the movement on the person's face that they're talking to. Oh, I think they're worried, right? That's all character choices that are description. But, you know, for us as screenwriters, we get the joy of coming from a medium where it's like, how do I visually represent this? Right? How do I tell the story outside? Because the camera can't go in the brain unless you do narration, and we know that's a faux pas.
Not doing that. Yeah,
you don't do narration.
No. I don't know. There have been some pretty big movies with a narrator, but yeah.
Well, you know, sometimes you got to get in that.
If you can get Morgan Freeman, I guess it's okay.
Well, Shawshank Redemption, by the way, is a 10 out of 10. There's nothing wrong with that film, you know, that writing. But to be fair, though, isn't that movie technically told in the future? Because Morgan Freeman is talking the whole time.
I think it's
and it catches up to him.
All a flashback.
Yeah. Excellent movie. No notes. Even the stuff I have thoughts about, I don't even acknowledge them because it's just pure. I actually did a breakdown of that.
Thomas, you're wrong.
How'd that happen?
I told you.
I emailed you specifically. Do not talk about that.
No.
But like, there's that really quick scene, and this is the importance of word count too. There's that really quick scene where they meet, and he's like, "Oh, you know, why did they call you Red? You know, probably because I'm Irish." Right? That whole scene, every line in that literally 3-minute scene is doing something so like, if you could connect the dots, everything leads back to moments like those scenes.
I agree. You know? And it's amazing that the viewer doesn't really know that's what's going on, and yet they also know that they've been picked up by a master, and they never get put down until the last word is spoken. But they don't really know exactly why, because every single interaction is engaging. It's changing. They have to stay with it. Their minds are alive. They're going. And so, and I tried to get as close to that as I could with, 100,000 words versus a screenplay. But certainly every couple of, every sequence of sentences was going to move the story forward. I mean, every once in a while I would cheat. If something was just plain funny, it could stay. But like,
Yeah.
I give that as kind of the other, that gets an excuse. Like, you can break
Well,
the
the
rule
rule
there.
of cool,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's cool for me.
yeah. Yeah.
Was there a big learning curve for you going from screenwriting to long form narrative?
Definitely. I think, I think the screenwriting part was also going to school, and that helped me a great deal. And I really like the fact that I ended up writing the way I wrote, and that's certainly due to starting off with screenwriting, because I employed some of the rules that go there into novel writing, which, as we've talked about, I mean, it just kind of made all the difference for me. It just felt right. But yeah, there was a big learning curve in general. You go to school on the act, and whether that was writing screenplays or writing this, you just go to I always tell people, like, just get it down, just put it down, trust me. And you'll some of this, yes, you may be able to get into learning and maybe take a course or read a book, but some of it's just going to come to you because it just feels it feels the right way. This still is an art form. It just feels. I can assure you that Keith Richards isn't like analyzing a lead. It just feels the way it's supposed to feel,
Yeah, I agree with that.
There was a great, I forget who. So, well, the Irish poet Michael Longley talks about how, he was talking about poetry, but he was talking about art in general. It tunes you up, to be a human being. That's its goal. And I think that there's a lot to that. It just feels a certain way. It's excellent to go to school, because I think going to school saves you time. You avoid potholes and cliffs that you wouldn't fall into. But yeah, I think some of it's just like, it's basically like, I forget who said it, but they're like, I'm fascinated by a simple piece of art that is on the other side of incredibly hard work. I'm not at all fascinated or interested in simple art that is on this side of hard work. Just not.
That's a great quote. Yeah, because the amount of work it takes to become simple. like when people how did you play that on the guitar? Oh, it took me 20 years plus today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's right. It's like, it's the notes you don't play,
Yes.
And I believe in so much of that. And so I wanted to write a simple book. I wanted something to, like, when people finished it, they were like, hey, that was actually well written. Like, you don't even notice it till it's done. They're like, okay, I got just what I needed. It was subtle. It was, it knew what it was about. That sort of thing. And that was the goal. And, you as you know, I mean, you can wear yourself out on that stuff, because you just don't want to put anything out. You too much respect for the art form, and maybe a little bit of personal pride. You just want to make sure it's right.
Yeah, but even before, I said being a writer is about making choices and asking questions. But one of those choices you have to make is, I have confidence in this choice, and I have to accept this choice, and I got to move on to because at the end of the day, who's really the greatest judge you could have? It's your beta readers. If the majority of your beta readers are like, this is solid, if you got 10 readers and 7 of them are like, this is good, put the book out. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're at that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think in screenwriting, at least, when when you get paid to write something, the evidence is that they pay you again.
Yeah, right. That's the notes. Thanks for the note. Yeah,
the notes are just getting you to the next gig. But like, it's at the end of the day, it's like, if people are appreciating what you're writing, that should tell you, okay, I should trust my choices. I should trust where I'm at. Especially near the end.
This was my problem, that I literally showed it to no one, not a soul, until it was done. And then, of course, you get into, and I'd edited a lot, but then, of course, you get into, like, you get professional editors on it. There's that sort of thing is fun. And I love the editing process. But I showed I showed a completed novel to, my wife when it was done. And that was the first person who saw it. So it was lovely to get, feedback from people, actual, notes, people that I didn't know, see reviews, like Publishers Weekly wrote a really nice review. So that was thrilling to get that, because I had been in a cave, as you just
Yeah.
living in this cave, all of a sudden you come out into the bright lights of scrutiny, and it just can be daunting. But when it's when there's something positive there, because you don't write the book for yourself, you want to connect with other human beings, you want that connection to be real and solid. That's the point of it.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'd actually kind of want to talk about it. So one of the things I like to do is I like to write the books that I want to read, like the stories I want to see, the characters I want to see.
Yeah.
And when I'm on that part of it, I don't really think about the audience. But then once I'm in the editing part, I think about the audience. What is the presentation of the stories I want to see? What is the presentation of the emotions I want to explore? Those heartbeats. So I kind of play with both those mindsets. I play with what you're saying, which is I want people to read it. I want to have a connection with people. I want them to feel these things. But before I even get to that point, I always try to say to myself, what is it I'm writing? Do I like this? Is this something that matters to me?
Well, and I think I would go, I agree with everything you're saying, but I think those two things can be connected, in which it showed then your common humanity is exposed. I wrote something that I really wanted to read. I wrote characters that I really wanted to get to know, but I did it also to connect with somebody else about this thing. And so there you are, you're both, your common humanity is connected at that point. They wanted to read it too. But I know for a fact I would never write a book if I was the last person on the earth, or if I was on the earth. I wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it? Like, what about like playing a guitar? Like I'd still fiddle faddle.
I would do that. I would definitely do that. But I don't know if I would write a 400-page novel if I was, the only person, knowing full well no one would ever read it. At least like you have a guitar, like the birds and the animals can hear you, and they'll walk over and be like, what's this fool doing?
Yeah, like what's going on over here? He's playing Ionian over here. Because if you write a 90,000 word book, you're really writing like a 200,000 word book by the time you're done with everything, with the editing and the rewrites. It's not worth it if no one else is going to read it. But don't you ever have those, like, don't you just wake up and you're like, I got to write this? Like, I just want to see this unfold. I want to see these characters and play.
Yes.
Because
I'm going through that now. I'm going through that now because, you write it, and then it goes into the world of marketing and publish, you have to publicize the thing, and which is, neither here nor there. But then you kind of think, well, okay, now here we go. If you want to be a writer, guess what you get to do? Write. And so I'm in the middle of that now. Part of me doesn't want to let these characters go. And so, I'm really been spending a lot of time, what that might look like, with a similar ensemble of characters, because you get to know them so well. And as we say, character is everything. And they've got more to tell, I believe. But there's no obvious sequel. I mean, I think the book, kind of like the way Truman Capote described the book when it was done, it's complete. It's like an orange. It is. And so I kind of felt like the story was complete, and yet that's not always the case. A lot of feedback has been, I'd like to know what happened with this, or I'd like to know more about them, or I'd like to know where that went after that. And so I'm like, well, fair enough. I do too.
So you're saying you don't want to milk it for all it's got, like Stephen King did with It.
Well, I'll take what Stephen King is. Yeah, sure. Whatever.
I'll take the money.
I'll take it. I'm not picky about that. Yeah.
I always thought, because obviously we come from two different worlds, and when you meet somebody, they're like, like authors that have never been in the film industry, they're like, would you ever sell your rights? I go, yes. And they go, well, what if they change it all? The check cleared, right?
Yeah.
The book exists, right? They can just buy the book, right? If they want to see the original. Yeah. Enjoy.
I mean, I'm with you. Yes. To get paid is a very nice thing. I would be, it depends on the changes that they made. Oftentimes, I think when you bring it to a new art form entirely. And so then you get like, the director is part of the story now, the creator, and now and the actors are, every moment they're all part of it. So now it's a collaboration with a lot of different people, and that's a very different thing. And I would love to see that if it changed it changed. I would want them to, I'd want it to resemble, the story, and I would
The
be
essence,
frustrated if they just missed a bunch of stuff that I love. But yes.
So you want like Game of Thrones season 1 through 5.
I know where you're going. Not the ending. No.
No. I always, what's interesting about that argument is that the showrunners wrote some of the best scenes that are on the screen that were never in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And that's including when Tywin is talking to Jaime when he's doing the deer. That scene's not in the book.
Yeah.
The scene where he's talking to the king boy, where like he climbs up the stairs, that's not in the book. The scene where he's hanging out with Arya and they're having that conversation in the empty castle, whatever, that's not in the book. And you're like, all right, I know why this show is good. It takes a strong concept that has really great characters, and then they added their touch to it. Fine. But then they leave, and then people are like, oh, you know what? I want to write a different story, but since I can't and I'm here, I'm just going to interject the actual show I would write if they would give me money. And then it turns into the last 3 seasons.
I would say in many cases, not just that particular show, but people bring different talents to the table. And, it's the talent of writing a huge story A to Z is a different talent than somebody that can come in and say, this would be a great touch right here. This would be, and they're right. They're improving it fully. But the idea that they're going to go, and write these massive things, that's a different personality type. It just is. And obviously it showed at the end when they lost their anchor to the actual big story thoughts. Yeah. And they started just doing their touches, and their touches became empty and sort of,
they became things happening, but nothing is happening, where it's like Jaime had this huge, arc growth, and then let's end him up with his sister. And you're like, what happened there?
Even a story like that, the things that are the most memorable are always what the characters did and said, and how the human elements of those characters. Yeah, sure, it's cool when a dragon comes and cuts somebody in two, but like, it's really those people, the human beings in the story that you're going to miss when it's over. You're going to miss them like they were friends of yours, like people that you knew. And that's where you want to, I think that's where you want to work. And then if you bring in exciting storytelling on top of that, I mean, my story, it's an adventure story. There's a treasure in it, right? Yeah. I mean, and this isn't high. Right. This isn't high literature. And yet I felt like I wanted to craft characters as good as I possibly could. That's where all the blood, sweat, and tears sort of went to.
I mean, it does help that you're, you practice dialogue for so long in a medium. And I think that's the advantage of being the screenwriters first and then becoming narrative writers in long form narrative, because you have to accomplish so much in dialogue without saying like, I am angry, or, by the way, we must get the sword of bloop bloop. Like you can't say that. No. Well, you can.
You can. People do it. People do it, Thomas.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think that's the school you went to, where now, and it shows in your writing, by the way, your dialogue is fantastic, and,
thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Well, I love that. I mean, I can be such a purist. Like, I don't even like it in movies sometimes when they have, scores, like music after, song after song. And I'm kind of like, don't stop telling me how to feel. I can do this on my own. I don't need sad music right here. I know this is, I know this is a moment,
Yeah, I know, right? Like they're crying, they're over their dead parent. Yeah, I get it. Like, yes, I don't need violins. Like I don't need.
It just feels like gilding the lily, and I really do like those quiet scenes. I mean, I don't know. There's so many quiet movies, so many examples when you're just like, God, it was just so spare and yet so powerful.
Mm-hmm. I think when music, like a score, you don't really hear the score. That's when it's doing its job. Not that I'm saying it's low volume, but I'm saying,
what you mean. It's really secondary.
And but like TV shows, there's a show called Jane the Virgin. It's a fun, fantastic play on like the soap operas and stuff. But like, but they by the way, I'm about to blow everybody's mind. You're going to get aggravated at me for this, but when you're watching TV show, they have cues, and those cues become just like, oh, hit Q1, hit Q2, and it's always like the same melody, or oh, this is a sad part, put that the same, right? So by season 3, they're not really writing new music for the scores; they're just popping in the cue. And in Jane the Virgin, there's always like whenever it's a sad moment, you always hear do 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 do. But once you notice it every single time, it's like and like that's something that they do in shows, right? Right? Like when you're not in movies per se, because you get a whole orchestra or somebody on a keyboard.
Yeah,
Right?
you get John Williams coming in and doing a. It's amazing how you hear 80 musicians all at once less than you hear like something like that.
Yeah, that's so
All I can hear.
now, are you a musician at all? Do you, because you made a couple of musical references?
I am a dabbler with a couple of different guitar, a mandolin, and what I like to play with other people, but yeah, that's about as far as it goes.
Oh, because I was gonna say, like, have you ever thought of writing a soundtrack where people can listen on, Spotify or your website while they read the book, and you say, "This is for chapter 1," or whatever the case is, and as they read, you go,
I do. As I said, well, I wouldn't do that. Certainly, I wouldn't try it myself. But music is very central to me being able to get into that place for a particular type of writing session. Sometimes I just needed it, and sometimes I needed it. If I revisited that, I would go back to a piece of music that I had sort of picked out for that, and kind of, it's very, very helpful. I even have, in terms of characters, I have pictures of my characters, just things that I would find and say, okay, that is Tito, that is Rory right there, and just have them up.
Yeah.
So if I needed to access them, I just look at them and like, what do you do? What are we doing here? And they will tell you, they do in a way. I mean, it takes a minute, you got to like let it come when it comes, but it takes a minute. Hopefully it doesn't come in the car, when you can't write anything down or like.
I draw stick figures and I use that as my, no, are you prone to write, with a fluid a sense when the music doesn't have lyrics, or does it matter to you?
Really, no lyrics. I try to keep lyrics out of the way.
Yeah.
I don't even read fiction when I'm writing fiction because I don't want to be influenced. I'll read nonfiction. I'll read, a lot of different things, but I won't read somebody else's stuff just because I'll think, oh, this is so good. I'll just be influenced by accident, or this is so good. I'll never, just there's so many ways you can get yourself turned around.
Yeah. Is this Gone Girl? What's going on?
I quit.
That's one of my when I was younger, because I started in the music industry actually. My music teacher was like, don't learn music, don't learn bands, because if you do that, then you're going to just be a session musician, and you want to be you want to write music, you want to have a voice, you want to have a style. So he was like, learn how the guitar works, learn theory, learn all the notes, and then learn other people's music.
Yeah.
Because now you can put your spin on it. Now you have choices. And that's how I approached writing too, where I didn't study screenwriting like scripts first. I wasn't like, what's format? I wanted to understand narrative. I wanted to be able to say, how do I manipulate these movements? How do I create emotions? And then I dove into the stuff that we talk. That's why I'm so prone to the craft, not necessarily like, you gotta move it 1 inch to the 4th, 7th, and every page has 8ths. Like none of that was important when I was first studying until I understood it. So I wasn't influenced. But who's that guy who wrote is it called the silent place, or where they can't talk and it's like aliens or something like that?
I know the movie you're talking about. I don't know who the writer is.
I can't remember his name, but the screenplay has like you'll get to a certain point and then it's a blank page and it just says the one or two steps, and then you turn the page and it goes 3 steps, and then the 4th steps, and then the last one's 5, and then like the page is all like messed up. and it shows that the alien attacked, and like it's just an example of like format. You really, you're a writer, so use that. With that said, I know I this book is already, but when you approach writing, do you think about that? Do you go, how can I use the page or the format, or even like, I'm a musician, so I like using musicality in the writing. So I'll use like for example, there's a bell scene. So I let the bell like create the anxiety. It's like bong, and something is happening. Bong, somebody's like a bong, right? I create that rhythm. Do you think about that when you're approaching books? Like, how do I use the format, or how do I use words to play with that?
Yeah, I definitely try to. Usually it's in dialogue. Usually it breaks format when I'm trying to slow people. I'm trying to slow things down, or I'm just trying to create a rhythm that's required. So I'll get out of what would be technical format. Or I'll even, there'll be a break in the page, and then a word will drop down. I mean, there was a moment in the book when, Innes is, kind of moving across the moors, and he has Aggie with him, and he's recalling his mother. There'd been some pressed flowers in a book earlier, and he's seeing them. She's asking them about these flowers at his feet as they go by them. And so they just kind of like the flower type sort of drops down, in an order, in a line. And it just sort of slows it lets the reader know that something's going on. It slows it down. It's at a remove now. Something's up. Look, I'm a believer in like absolutely anything you can use to get the story across is fair game. Do what you need to do. If it works, it works. I mean, I could imagine one word on a page. I could if it was the right thing to do. I'd say absolutely do it.
Yeah, because it's a visual medium too. In a sense, it may not be cinematic, but at the same time, like, how do I use even headers, like the chapters you use? Like, some people just say chapter 1, but if you use a title, how does the title influence the chapter? How does it influence your experience with reading? Well, we're getting close to the end of the hour, and as always, I love asking the same question to every guest, especially when it's their first time. So I'm going to put it on the screen, I'll read it out, and then you let us know your thoughts. What is one piece of advice you discovered about writing that completely changed the way you approach the writing process?
Yeah, I think for me, and a lot of this is going to come down to your personality type, human nature, how you deal with doubt, how you deal with any of those sort of headwinds of emotion that you're going to experience when you try something like this. And the best piece of advice I always give people is just, and I had to give it to myself repeatedly, is just allow yourself to write poorly. Allow yourself to put down a bad chapter, a bad sentence, or just get the essence of the story, get the movement of the story, get the heavy lifting in place. Just get it down, and then you can go back and rewrite. And I know that that's probably hackneyed to say that writing is rewriting, but for me, it was just get perfectionism out of your life, not just off the page. Just get it out of your life, and just allow yourself to do what you do, and then you can go back and remedy those things at another time. But just get it down.
I love that. Yeah, great writing is rewriting. Let's be honest.
No question.
You got to put the work in, or what's the point? That's fantastic advice. I'm glad that was a nice little period on the end of the episode. Before we get out of here, Faulkner Hunt, how do people find you? And remember, some people are listening and some people are watching.
Well, they can always go to faulknerhunt.com, which is mostly now just a promotional page for the Ballad of Innes of Skara, Skaill. They can certainly just go to Amazon or their local book and type in my name, Faulkner Hunt, and they'll find this book. And soon enough, they'll find another. So that's how they can find me. I'm not a social media person. I'm not on Instagram or any of that. So You're not going to find me there, but
you're not on OnlyFans or anything.
No, but I could if I wanted.
I could be.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, Thomas. It's my choice.
That's right. We must make a choice and stick with it.
Yes.
Well, Faulkner Hunt, fantastic name, fantastic interview, and I did enjoy your book. For anyone out there, let me pop you up on the screen and show the people. This is the book right here, the Ballad of, how do you say Innes?
The Ballad of Innes of Skara, Skaill.
Yeah, there you go. A novel by. You wrote this.
I did. Yeah, I know that guy.
With that said, to everybody out there, I had a lot of fun. And if you want to check out his information, if you missed any of it, it is in the description of the video below. But other than that, we are out of here. I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and as always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Bye.